A server farm at 3 a.m. hums with absolute sterile indifference. Racks of blinking black towers process human desperation into neat data packets. Miles away from the physical servers, at the downtown headquarters of LensStream, an automated microloan application, the fraud division sits mostly empty. Fluorescent tubes buzz overhead. They cast a harsh, unforgiving light on a lone manual reviewer named David. Monitor number 4 reflects his exhausted posture. His coffee has gone completely cold. It is a quiet Tuesday. He expects to find stolen identification cards, poorly photoshopped utility bills, the usual mundane digital grift. Instead, the proprietary algorithm throws an urgent red error code across his screen. Error 404. Liveness verification failed. The protocol is simple. To secure a quick transfer of funds, the application requires a 7-second video selfie. A blink, a slight nod. Proof of human life. The internal system cannot authenticate the file. David clicks the thumbnail. The window expands, taking over his primary display. There is no buffering delay, only raw, high-definition reality pouring through the fiber optic line. The reviewer leans closer to the monitor. A sudden glow paints his face a sickly, pale blue. His hand hovers over the keyboard. Fingers lock into a rigid spasm above the space bar. He grabs the beige desk phone, his thumbs slipping on the smooth plastic buttons as he violently punches 3 numbers.
911? Yeah, I need to report an emergency. I work at LensStream, the fraud division. I'm looking at a loan application video right now and Jesus, she's not blinking. Her eyes are just staring. She isn't moving.
The software algorithm is not confused. LensStream is functioning with perfect mathematical precision. On the screen, 28-year-old Elena Rostova fills the vertical frame. Elena is a talented graphic designer. Her wardrobe consists of vintage cardigans. Sunday afternoons were once dedicated to painting watercolors. She is a woman who, until very recently, possessed a vibrant, beating heart. Right now, she wears a heavy, oversized winter coat. The timestamp reads mid-August. That thick collar is pulled unnaturally high. It obscures her neck and lower jaw completely. The camera angle is erratic, shaky, and frantic. A smartphone lens hovers mere inches from her face, held by an unseen hand. Elena's expression remains utterly slack. Her mouth hangs open slightly. The pupils are fixed, blown wide, reflecting the bright white flash of the phone's camera in an otherwise pitch-black environment. David's breathing turns rapid and shallow. He presses the plastic headset tighter against his left ear. Desperation drives him to isolate the audio track, buried beneath the static of the emergency line. A faint rustling sound plays through the speakers.
There's a guy's voice in the background. It's muffled, but he keeps telling the camera to focus. He's holding her. Someone is physically holding her head up from behind the hood. God, I think she's dead. Please, you need to trace the IP address right now.
The police dispatcher types frantically on the other end of the line. In the precinct of Oakhaven, the Metro Constabulary night shift jolts awake. Alarms sound, units are mobilized. But the omniscient eye sees far beyond the confines of the LensStream office. We can pierce the darkness. Inside a cramped, rusted sedan parked on a forgotten, rain-slicked logging road deep in the woods of Pine Ridge, A nightmare unfolds. Marcus Vance sits in the driver's seat. His knuckles burn white as he grips the smartphone. The left hand is buried deep in the dark fabric of Elena's hood. Fingers desperately clamp a fistful of her hair, fighting gravity to keep her skull upright against the passenger seat. The screen of his device flashes a relentless green text. Please blink to continue. Marcus curses under his breath. Sweat beads on his forehead. He shifts his grip violently. In that split second, the heavy winter coat slips down. Just an inch. The smartphone lens catches the movement. A sudden flash of pale, lifeless skin is illuminated. And something else. A tight, deep red-brown band of friction burns scored directly into the flesh of her throat. The camera's autofocus mechanism whirs. It captures the exact, microscopic texture of a woven nylon moving rope pressed eternally into the skin. 7 agonizing seconds elapse. The application times out. The file upload completes. Digital evidence is logged into the LensStream mainframes forever. Back in the city, David sits frozen in his cubicle. The glassy, unblinking eyes of Elena Rostova burn into his retinas as he waits for the sirens to arrive. Those glassy, unblinking eyes refuse to leave the monitor. Even as the distant wail of sirens bleeds through the reinforced glass of the LensStream building. David does not move. He cannot look away from the 7-second loop. The digital ghost of Elena Rostova plays over and over. 7 seconds of forced stillness. A macabre portrait trapped in a high-definition codec. By the time Oak Haven Metro constabulary cruisers flood the subterranean parking structure, the algorithm has already processed the rejection. The video is locked away in the corporate mainframe. Dawn breaks over the Oak Haven skyline, offering no warmth to the detectives huddled inside the cyberforensics laboratory. The physical world offers them absolutely nothing. There is no crime scene cordoned off with yellow tape. Investigators lack a murder weapon, and they do not even possess a body. Law enforcement holds only a 40-megabyte file compressed into an MP4 container. The omniscient perspective drifts through the sterile, humming room. Fluorescent lights reflect off the polished linoleum floor. Detectives crowd around a glowing, ultra-wide monitor. This is a post-mortem conducted entirely through pixels. The lead technical analyst drags the playback slider backward. Frame by frame, the video creeps in reverse. Time is dissected into milliseconds. The pacing of the investigation slows to an agonizing crawl. The unnatural slump of Elena's jaw becomes magnified on the 80-inch display. Gravity pulls at her facial muscles with absolute, merciless finality. Her skin lacks the translucent warmth of circulating blood. It presents a flat or ashen gray pallor, a shade that only exists when the human heart completely stops its drumming rhythm. Detectives search for digital artifacts, unaware that 30 miles away, a shovel violently bites into the damp earth of Pine Ridge. They analyze screen brightness while the killer wipes sweat and rain from his brow. The irony hangs heavy in the windowless lab. Law enforcement is hunting a ghost, while the actual flesh is being buried under decaying pine needles. The analyst applies a high-contrast rendering filter. Slowly, the heavy winter coat, pulled awkwardly high around Elena's face, shifts near the 3-second mark of the recording. The movement is microscopic, a byproduct of the unseen hand struggling to support the dead weight of a human skull. Shadows stretch across the exposed skin. The forensic software interpolates the missing light, stripping away the digital noise. A tight, deep red-brown band emerges from the darkness beneath her chin. The technical analyst leans forward, his nose mere inches from the glass screen. He taps the space bar, freezing the progression of time entirely, and points a trembling ballpoint pen at the illuminated cluster of pixels.
Stop right there. Enhance frame 42. Look at her neck, right below the jawline. Those aren't pixel artifacts. That's a ligature mark. My God, he's using a corpse to beat the biometric scanner.
The room falls completely silent. The constant hum of the cooling fans inside the server racks suddenly feels deafening. Every eye stares at the ligature mark. The friction burn is distinctly horizontal. It wraps cleanly around the circumference of the throat without any upward deviation. Forensic science dictates this indicates a sudden, overwhelming force. A constriction applied directly from behind. It is an impossible detail, a paradox staring them directly in the face. A woman cannot legally apply for a high-interest payday loan hours after the oxygen has been violently choked from her brain. An autopsy usually demands a physical vessel. Here, the vessel is a scattered trail of data packets. They immediately run the IP coordinates. The connection pings off a rural cell tower bordering the city limits. A secondary trace hits the victim's digital wallet. Notifications cascade down the analyst's secondary monitor. Banking alerts flash green. The omniscient eye sees the bureaucratic web tightening, yet contradicting the visual evidence. Elena Rostova's debit card was physically swiped at a local vehicle rental agency just 4 hours prior. Her corporate employee portal shows an active, approved request for bereavement leave, typed via mobile device. The digital footprint suggests a woman actively rearranging her life. She is supposedly running errands, booking time off, traveling. Yet, the high-definition corpse on the main screen tells the absolute, undeniable truth. She is already gone. The detectives mobilize, strapping on shoulder holsters and grabbing heavy raincoats. They sprint toward the residential address listed on the employment file. But a creeping dread settles over the precinct floor. If the perpetrator is calculating enough to manipulate banking applications and human resources departments, what exactly is waiting for them inside the victim's empty apartment? What waits inside the victim's empty apartment is absolutely nothing. Detectives kick the heavy oak door open, expecting a scene of violent desperation. Flashlights slice through the shadows of Elena Rostova's living room, illuminating undisturbed dust motes. Furniture remains perfectly aligned on the cheap laminate flooring. 2 ceramic coffee mugs sit washed and drying beside the kitchen sink. The physical environment flatly contradicts the digital evidence locked in the police precinct servers. There is no blood. Overturned chairs do not exist. Oak Haven investigators face a sterile void. Frustration mounts as the morning sun climbs higher. The lead detective slams a manila folder onto the dining table. Bureaucratic hurdles immediately stall their momentum. Human resources at Elena's design firm stonewalls the police. They cite corporate privacy policies before reluctantly confirming a text message received at exactly 8:15. A polite, grammatically perfect request for emergency bereavement leave. Furthermore, financial records ping a newly authorized transaction. $15,000 transferred. A rental vehicle secured under her name just 4 hours ago. The paper trail builds a flawless illusion. Society insists Elena is alive, grieving, and traveling. Law enforcement is trapped in a maze of the killer's design. We, however, can step backward through time. 12 hours prior to the police breach, Marcus Vance works in absolute silence. He moves methodically across the same living room carpet. A damp rag in his right hand erases every microscopic mistake. Disinfectant spray coats the baseboards. He breathes in measured, heavy gasps. The macabre reality of his task requires immense physical labor. Marcus hauls Elena's lifeless weight from the bedroom floor. Joints begin to stiffen. Gravity fights him constantly. He wrestles her into an oversized winter coat, gritting his teeth to push rigid arms through the padded sleeves. The collar must sit high. It must completely conceal the deep, red-brown friction burns circling her throat. Sweat drips from his chin onto the dark fabric. He hoists her onto his back, adjusting her knees around his waist, a grotesque piggyback ride. The apartment door clicks shut. Marcus navigates the narrow, dimly lit hallway of the third floor. Each step is a calculated risk. Old wooden floorboards creak under the combined weight of two humans. He reaches the landing just as a door opens down the corridor. The building superintendent steps out, clutching a plastic garbage bag. Marcus freezes. His heart hammers violently against his ribs. A frantic, deafening rhythm the police will never hear. The superintendent pauses, squinting at the awkward silhouette in the dim lighting. In the present day, a cassette tape clicks into the player inside an interrogation room, playing back the old man's belated realization.
Yeah, I saw Marcus last night in the hall. Had Elena on his back, piggyback style. She wasn't moving, arms hanging down. I asked if they were moving out or if something was wrong, and he just smiled a little. Real quiet. Said she was feeling sick and he was taking her to the doctor. How was I supposed to know?
How could anyone know? Marcus constructed an airtight, moving alibi. The Oak Haven Metro Constabulary hits a concrete wall of their own procedural rules. Time dilates. 48 hours evaporate into a suffocating bureaucratic limbo. Judges refuse to sign search warrants for a woman whose banking app suggests she is actively renting cars. Detectives pace the bullpen. They chain smoke in the alley behind the station, eyes red from lack of sleep. The precinct whiteboards remain painfully blank, save for a single printed photograph of the 7-second lens stream video. They know a murder occurred. The digital ghost told them the truth. Yet, the legal system binds their hands. Psychological fatigue erodes the team's focus. The investigators sleep in uncomfortable office chairs, subsisting on stale coffee and pure adrenaline. They must wait for a single slip-up. A financial anomaly. A digital footprint placed in the wrong time zone. They wait for Marcus Vance to feel confident enough to make his next fatal mistake. That fatal mistake arrives wrapped in the heavy, damp darkness of the Pine Ridge woods. Marcus Vance believes he has outsmarted the modern world. He stands above a shallow depression in the earth, miles away from the nearest cell tower or street lamp. Rain lashes against the canopy overhead, masking the sound of approaching tires creeping along the logging road. A plastic jug of chemical accelerant swings heavily from his right hand. He tips the sloshing spout. Clear liquid soaks into the discarded fabric of Elena Rostova's oversized winter coat, pooling in the muddy soil. The sharp odor of harsh solvents completely overpowers the natural scent of wet pine needles. Marcus reaches deep into his denim pocket for a lighter, his thumb flicking the metal spark wheel to ignite the evidence. A blinding white beam from a tactical flashlight cuts through the downpour before the flame can catch. The Oakhaven Metro Constabulary does not give him a fraction of a second to run. Heavy boots hit the mud with a violent splash. Steel handcuffs click shut around his wrists, biting cold and hard into his wet skin. The omniscient camera pulls back rapidly, leaving the rain-soaked, corrupted forest behind, and drops us directly into the sterile, unforgiving fluorescent glare of Interview Room B. The box is mathematically designed to break the human spirit. 4 windowless gray walls create a claustrophobic cage. One mirrored pane of glass observes from the side. A single scratched aluminum table is securely bolted to the linoleum floor. The analog clock on the wall ticks with a hollow, rhythmic precision that slowly chips away at sanity. Marcus sits opposite the lead investigator. His arrogant facade is a masterclass in sociopathic deception. He leans forward casually, resting his elbows on the cold metal surface. He plays the role of the grieving, confused boyfriend with practiced, fluid ease. Beneath the table, however, out of the detective's line of sight, his left leg bounces in a frantic, uncontrollable staccato. His pulse hammers a desperate, high-speed rhythm against the veins in his neck. Detectives let the absolute silence stretch. It pulls like a fraying rubber band, threatening to snap at any given moment. They patiently allow him to construct his lies. He spins a detailed narrative of a bitter, late-night argument. A volatile breakup triggered by his persistent lack of employment and previous criminal history. He confidently claims Elena stormed out of the apartment in a rage, calling him a failure, leaving him completely alone to pack his bags. The investigator simply nods, offering a quiet, sympathetic hum to encourage the performance. The false illusion of safety washes over Marcus. He exhales a long, slow breath. Deeply convinced he has navigated the interrogation maze perfectly, he is blissfully unaware of the digital guillotine suspended inches above his neck. The lead detective wordlessly slides a sleek, black laptop out of an anti-static evidence bag. He flips the screen open smoothly. The device is not connected to the precinct network or the internet. It houses only a single locally saved video file retrieved from a corporate server. He slowly turns the high-resolution monitor around to face the prime suspect. His index finger hovers patiently over the trackpad. Marcus furrows his brow, feigning mild annoyance at the unexpected visual aid. The detective presses play. The 7-second LensStream biometric verification video instantly fills the screen. High-definition reality violently shatters the manufactured alibi. Elena's glassy, unblinking eyes stare directly at her killer from the digital void. The microscopic friction burn is clearly visible beneath her pale chin. The muffled, unmistakable sound of Marcus's own voice echoes off the cinder block walls, desperately commanding the dead woman to look at the camera lens. The color completely drains from the suspect's face in an instant. His pupils dilate in raw, unfiltered panic as his brain struggles to process the impossible. The anxious bouncing of his leg stops dead. His lungs forget how to pull oxygen from the stale room. The detective pauses the video exactly at frame 42, permanently locking the impossible detail on the screen, and leans back in his chair. The plastic joints creak loudly in the suffocating quiet.
I don't know where she went, man. She called me a broke loser and left. Wait. Where did you get that video? That's... No, that's not what it looks like. I was just...
The stammering defense dies pathetically in his throat. He stares helplessly at the frozen image of his own hand, clearly visible in the extreme periphery of the frame, clutching a fistful of Elena's hair. There is no plausible deniability left to weaponize. Bureaucratic loopholes cannot shield him from this level of forensic exposure. The financial transactions, the fake text messages sent to human resources, the rented getaway sedan. It all collapses instantly under the crushing weight of a 7-second technological anomaly. Marcus slowly sinks back against the hard plastic of his chair, utterly defeated. His eyes remain paralyzed, fixed on the glowing laptop monitor. He is no longer looking at a frustrated law enforcement officer seeking a confession. He is staring at the undeniable reflection of his own monstrous greed. A silent, damning confession permanently hangs in the tight space between them. The trap has snapped shut, and there is nowhere left to run. There is nowhere left to run inside interview room B. Just as there was nowhere left to run inside the darkened bedroom of the Oakhaven apartment. The illusion of safety had already been systematically dismantled 48 hours prior. Elena Rostova had gone to sleep believing the bitter argument was completely over. She assumed the morning light would bring a final, clean separation. Her head rested heavily against the cotton pillowcase. Marcus Vance, however, remained wide awake. He did not pace the laminate floorboards. The man simply sat on the edge of the mattress, staring blankly at the wall, calculating the precise financial deficit of his impending eviction. A deep-seated toxic resentment festered in the quiet dark. His mind tallied up the groceries purchased, the utilities consumed, and the perceived injustices of a 2-year relationship ending solely over a persistent inability to secure a steady paycheck. Revenge took a profoundly mundane, physical form. A coil of thick, braided nylon moving rope sat forgotten in the corner of the hallway closet. Marcus had used that exact tether to strap his meager belongings to the roof of a borrowed vehicle when she first allowed him to move into her sanctuary. It was originally an instrument of his salvation. Now, his hands twisted the fibers into a tool of absolute betrayal. The omniscient lens watches him slip the coarse nylon from the wooden shelf. He unspools a 3-foot section, the rough material stretching taut between white-knuckled fists. The shadow approaches the bed with silent, deliberate, predatory steps. We draw the empathy boundary here. The camera refuses to linger on the violence or the desperate struggle. Observers witness only the tragic, abrupt silence that follows. The sudden extinguishment of a vibrant, creative soul. A woman who painted watercolors on Sunday afternoons, snuffed out over wounded pride and pathetic financial panic. Dawn broke over the city skyline, and the perpetrator instantly began commodifying the tragedy. The killer stepped over the body to retrieve her mobile phone. Calloused thumbs navigated the glowing touchscreen that had just been stolen from her future. $15,000 was quickly siphoned directly to a rental agency to secure a getaway car. Another $30,000 transferred out of her personal savings through encrypted banking applications. Justice, eventually, moved with swift and sterile efficiency to counter the greed. The Oakhaven Metro Constabulary handed the damning digital evidence over to the district attorney. A grand jury convened weeks later in a brightly lit, mahogany-paneled courthouse. They did not debate for very long. Defense attorneys offered no plausible counter-narrative. Marcus Vance received a life sentence, permanently locked away in a concrete cell far removed from the damp soil of the Pine Ridge woods. The legal system methodically cataloged the evidence, closed the heavy cardboard file, and archived the incident under capital offenses. Yet, a profound, unsettling weight lingers long after the iron prison doors slide shut. It is not the act of the murder itself that haunts the veteran investigators. Physical violence is an ancient, tragically common human failing. The true darkness of this case lies entirely in the absolute lack of humanity demonstrated in the immediate aftermath. Marcus Vance looked down at the lifeless face of the woman he once claimed to love and saw nothing but a biometric key. Dragging her stiffening body into the passenger seat of a rented sedan, he carefully propped her heavy skull against the leather headrest, demanding she perform one final, degrading transaction. The fugitive needed just a few thousand more dollars. A rapid microloan would comfortably fund his escape across state lines. Vance positioned the smartphone camera lens mere inches from her pale face, waiting patiently for an algorithm to validate her existence. The display cast a sickly, artificial green glow over the pitch-black interior of the car. The lens stream application processed the visual input, repeating its cold, programmed decree into the empty, rain-soaked forest.
Liveness verification failed. Eyes must remain open and blink to proceed. Please try again. Liveness verification failed.